Okay, so we're gonna do a video of skinning and boarding a marten. So we'll show you how we do it. So first of all, we brush them up all nice and clean, which I already did. I got them hanging. I don't have the luxury of a gamble, so my old setup is just a old pair of vice grips hanging on a piece of wire on a little cord pull, little block kind of deal. So we're gonna start with our wedge knife. We're gonna start right in the pad, and I'll show you here. So we want to cut right up the line, the center of the back of his leg, and we basically want to be between the scrotum and the anus is where we want to stop. We'll get this side here done. We start at the pad. And the hard spot actually on most critters like this is the knuckle or the knee. When you go over that, it catches the bone. And we want to follow up a nice straight line right between the scrotum and the anus. That's where I stop. And then start just below the knee. I just kind of work it with my thumb, get it started. And I work your thumb around there. Other side. Once I get my thumb through there, kind of work that forward on the leg. Both sides. Thumb over around the thigh here. Okay, then I'm going to go towards the pad. Now, it's going to the fur market, but some people try to keep the toes on. Doesn't really matter. You can cut the feet off the front. You can leave the toes. But all I do is I start it right at the pad, and then I just pull. And it kind of gives most of the toe fur. Pulls all the toes out. Now that I got this piece down, I'm going to change feet. Other side. So same thing. I'm going to start at the pad. Run a straight line right up between the scrotum and the anus. Start just behind that knee. It's a little softer there. My thumb through. Same thing, coming back. Roll the knuckle. Just pull right off his toes. So we get almost all the fur from the toes. that work right up to the back of his tail here. Kind of working my thumb around his backside behind his tail. And I'll match that up on the opposite side. And then this is a male. So what I do is whereas on this side, right in front of his scrotum, I just nick that little piece of hide through. Then I start that down. Start that down to his penis bone here. There's a little bone in there. I just pull the bone back until it hits skin. You can see there's a bone right here, and then that skin right there. I just cut it right at the tip of the bone. That's my front side is released now. Then on the back side, I got my fingers through here. So what I do on the back side is, if you squeeze, his glands will release his oils. So what I do is just kind of work it softly with my fingers, tips of my fingers. And then what I do is I take my knife and I slide it right in behind his anus. And I cut that part off. So when I'm pulling, I'm not squeezing on those glands. And then you can go right to a tail stripper now. But what's always worked best for me is I'm at his tail there. You got to be careful doing this because you're cutting toward yourself. But I just use the tip of my knife and I follow that bone, and I just get it started a little bit, just to, if I could split the tail maybe an inch or so just by picking the tip of my knife here. See, I got it split just a little bit, and I get that started just to make sure there's nothing connected and everything's going to slide good. So I got that little bit of tail now. And I go ahead with my tail splitter. You get these metal, plastic, there's all different kinds. You can even just squeeze it with your fingers and pull. But make sure you don't get fur and hide when you pinch this down. You want to pinch it down on the tail itself, and you want to bunch up the hide in front of it before you squeeze. So kind of hold back a little bit, squeeze, and then work that tail free. There's the tail clear. And then what I do is kind of a cheat. Some guys leave the toes on the front feet. What I do is a cheat, so I don't have to put paddles on cardboard. Front feet are just front feet. It's going to the fur market. So what I do is there's a kind of a inner whisker where like a dew claw on a dog would be. Right there, I just use a big pair of tin shears, and I just cut the foot right off. Same on the other side, right where that whisker is. Just kind of a little pad further back. I just get right behind that pad, cut it off. And then, marten is kind of our bread and butter in the trapping world, so the little things you could do to fetch a better dollar is always worth it. So I don't get too hog wild at pulling at them just yet. Just kind of use my thumb and kind of work it little bits at a time, taking my time, being gentle with the leather. Run less risk of tearing it. That work down. Raise this up a little bit. Okay. So just continue working it down, little bits at a time. Of course, I could just grab this and pull, but you don't want to run the risk of tearing it. So it's easier just to use your thumb, work it down nice and easy. you never know, you could have a tear mark or a cut or a scar from fighting. Just kind of work it little bits at a time, work into his armpits. Once I get the armpits and I can see the leg on both sides, then what I do is I'll just go after one. So I'll get my thumb right here on the edge and I'll grab the leg. I'll work my thumb behind it. Once I get my thumb through, then I just pull it off the leg. Same on the other side. Work that down. Work my thumb in the armpit. Once I get my finger through, grab the leg, pull it back. I want to keep working it down nice and easy here until I get to his ears. Ears are on the side of their head on these. You can see the cartilage starting in the backside of his ear. I try to leave that bit of cartilage on the ear so you don't get like a torn ear look when he's on the board and dry it after. So what I do is I cut just say 3/8 of an inch from where the back of the cartilage is. So I'm down in the base of his ear, not too much cartilage, not too least of cartilage. Same on the other side. And then what I do is I kind of squeeze that, use that wedge shape of his head to put pressure on it. Like I use my thumb, I use my fingers, and I put pressure and I just kind of follow the edge of the skin, behind the skin, so you don't cut through the eyelids or cut through the ears. And then there's always a little bit of blood around the face when you get to the face of all these types of critters. So I just use a paper towel, sticks to them. I kind of stick it on there and then roll it back, because then I can just continue to use it as I work my way down. But now I'm getting close to his eyes and his lips here. So I keep pressure. I stay right behind that skin. Then when you get to an eye, you can use the ear. You can see the eye starting right here. I use the ear. See how when I put pressure, it puts pressure just in that eye socket, and then I can work the back side of that eyelid so I don't cut the eyelids off. You see how I got right at the eyeball? And I'm keeping the eyelids. And then what's going to restrict me next is where the bottom lip starts right where the eye starts. Bottom lip is not that important. We're going to cut that off. So you just kind of work the cheek a little bit. Go to the other side. Work the cheek a little bit. Get into that eye by pulling on the ear cartilage. Go back and forth. Once you get to the front of the eye, there's a little bump in their skull. That's a common place that they get cut too much. So work those lips. And when I get to the front of the eye, I cut down towards the skull again, right in the corner of the eyelid, because that's the last little bit that kind of hangs on, is that little nub of like a tear duct, I guess it would be. And work our way down to his nose here. Then once I get to where I can get my finger through, what I like to do, a little simpler for me, I guess, is my fingers in those lip holes and I put that pressure to get the nose. Work my way down to the nose. See, I can get my fingers through there now. I try to take as much of the cartilage out of the nose as I can. Work my way down, and then just cut through the cartilage. I got the nose off, but the bottom lip is still attached. So all I do for the bottom lip is just where, because that's where they staple your tag to your marten, so you can see where that all comes together there. I just want to cut that bottom lip right square. And there's our hide. So I'm going to relocate the camera and we'll show you the next step. Okay, so we got Mama filming now. We had some technical difficulties. So we're going to show boarding it. So a male mink board and a male marten board are the same. So you can see here, this is male mink. Those are the measurements. Male marten, those are the measurements for my small, medium, large, 1X, 2X. So I want the tail side on that side. But first I gotta split the tail, which I cannot find my tail splitter, so I have to do it by hand. I need a knife. So I'm gonna use my wedge knife. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just work it loose. I'm gonna just do little bits at a time, because the tail splitter, you can just slide it right in there and go to town, but when you do it like this, you have to be careful that you don't go through with the tip of the knife. So I'm just working that down. I can feel on the back side, the tip of the knife. Do little bits at a time. Don't poke through the other side of the tail. Just kind of working it slow and feeling the knife. Tail splitter, obviously a very handy tool to have. I can't find mine, so in a pinch, do it the manual way. Right down to the tip of the tail here now, so when I come out the end, I just go all the way through and split. So then on a marten, there's a little bit of fat behind the legs. Sometimes there's a little bit here at the base of the tail. So what I like to do is just get them kind of sideways on the board here. And you want to leave this light saddle unless there's a bunch of fat, because that makes your hide thicker. It's a better grade. So what I have here is a little paint scraper. I just ground the tips, sharp tips off it, kind of dulled it. Real old, but still works. You can make your own out of all kinds of different things. Then I just take that saddle till it gets thinned out, and then I just kind of stop when it starts to thin. You could also go the opposite way. You can go this way where it's thin, just kind of break the layer, because we want to, our end goal is to leave that little bit of saddle to make the hide a little thicker. Then on the opposite leg, see there's a little fat behind the front legs. Oh, we got some damage there. We got an old bite mark there. Old scar. So you could, I felt it after, but there's an old scar right there behind his armpit. So we're going to pin that up when we're done as well. Then down by the feet, there's always tendon that's attached down at the feet. Sometimes you can get the top of it and just pull it off by hand. Just work that tendon back, the whole of it. Clean down to the toes. Right there in the belly, with that gristle there. See that tendon I'm talking about? Get above it. Usually goes from that knee joint to the top of their foot, and it kind of stays attached to the skin. Okay. So we got our tail is split. All fat cleaned up. Got a little scar behind the armpit that I never noticed, but I can feel it now. But that happens. Working with wild animals, nothing's perfect. So we're gonna get them straightened up on the board, eyes straight, ears straight. I'm not pulling tight down on him or anything. I'm just kind of working him naturally as he lays on the board to see what his measurement is. So there's his natural lay without pulling on him or anything like that. There's our 1X line. The measurement is to the base of the tail. So you can see if I pull him to that 1X, I'm going to stretch him thin and he'll grade lower. He'll be a bigger size, but he'll grade lower, so I'll actually lose money. So if you look, his natural lay, he's just past the, you can see it better here. That's his natural laying point. And if I pull that up, there's my large line. So if we don't pull on him, we kind of keep him loose fitting. We're going to take them just a little bit past that large line, probably here, because when they actually go to the market, they shrink between then and I think they say ½ an inch is what they shrink from what you pin on the board until it actually goes across the auction floor. So we're going to start just a ½ inch past that large line. That way here we're not tight here. You can see we're loose, so when this dries, it'll be a little thicker. Back up a little bit so that we can. It'll be a little thicker here when it dries, so he'll grade better in his size range. So what I want to do is I just want to center the base of the tail. I'll put a pin on each side of the tail. So I got him started there in the center. And then what I like to do is just pull a little wrinkle beside that pin. This is all for that quality, because the grade in the marten is from the base of his tail back of his shoulders basically, so we want to thicken up this area so we get that little better dollar. We'd like to make every animal best that it possibly can be. Okay, so I got 4 pins there. You can see that's kind of loose there, got a little fold there. Then what I do is I flip over to the belly side. Same thing, just kind of naturally where he lays. Start with a pin in the center. And then I'm going to start working the legs. And I'm going to bring them together into a center line, so maybe about an inch. And I'm going to take the opposite leg, an inch, bring them into the center. And just work that back about an inch, center. Other leg, about an inch, bring it to the center. And we just keep that nice center line going. Pin in the back. Okay. Then I'm going to split the foot apart. Take that toe right to the outside edge of my board. Same the opposite side. Get that toe. Get to the edge of the board. One in the middle. Want to make sure that it's all open to air. See what I got going on. I'm going to work my way back up the leg from the bottom now. The reason why I come from the bottom up is just always thinking about that section of fur that's graded. If we have a little extra leather to work with, we want it to bulk up in that area because that's where it's graded from. Okay, so there's the legs done. Then here, my first 4 pins, so I got that little wrinkle. This is where I come from the bottom up, because now in between these 2 pins, I'm going to take and I'm going to pull just another slight wrinkle here, because my goal is to thicken this section. Same on this side. The pin in between the pins, and I'm just going to kind of draw it up a little bit. And just, everything's exposed to air, but with those 2 little wrinkles there, it just kind of thickens that patch that's graded. Okay. And then on the tail, you can lay your tail out and pin it out all the way. Or you can use these handy dandy screens. They sell little plastic things too that you can, they're like a wedge, they slide in and they separate the fur, or get a rubber band on them. I find the screens are handy. Just kind of lay everything out, comb that fur back, my fingers. Myself a screen here. Just lay the screen on top of the tail. You don't actually have to pin the screen, or the skin, sorry. You just pin the screen, holds it all nice and tight and flat. This is 1/4 inch screen, I believe, or maybe 3/8. So I got my 3 pins. We'll add 2 in the middle just in case. We got our tail laid out nice and flat to air. Pulled up all the slack. Legs are pinned out nice and even. And then we have this little damage spot here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pin that together so it dries up. That scar tightened up. Must have had a bite mark in his armpit from fighting. So what I'm doing is I'm just using the tip of my pin and I'm tucking that fur down in and rolling the skin over, but not overlapping the skin too much where the skin won't dry. We got that pinned up nice. Now you can split the legs and put little paddles in there, but I find doing it, cutting the legs off the way I showed, I just pull those straight like that. And then when I dry this, I dry it leaning up against the wall so the armpits dry properly. So I'll just get my my wedge in here. I'm going to tuck that in our little window where we cut the bottom lip. Slide that down to my front pin. Okay, and then this would be 6 to 10 hours in the house drying, and then once it's all nice and dry, like we don't want it too dry because you need to roll the nose, and if it gets too dry you might want to use a damp towel to moisten it to be able to roll the nose. So then I'll show you what we do in the next step, because I already had one here that I rolled. Okay. So I had one here that I already slid off the board, and I rolled them. You start at the nose and you work your way down, and then so this is after that 6 to 10 hours of drying. And then what I do is I reboard them for out, and now the legs are inside, so you want to run the tip of your board down along his back. And this is to maintain our shape and our size and our final drying before market. And sometimes you don't always get them tightly down to the nose because the legs are now there, right? So you just kind of work them and get them all straightened out on the board again, so he maintains that shape and size for his final bit of work. And then I don't get too technical when I flip him. He's already dry, so we just want him to kind of hold that size. So what I do is I just maybe 1 pin in the foot. I draw my legs back around to that. Remember, our goal was to thicken the leather right here. So I draw my legs back in and pin them to the tail. I'll get 1 pin at the end of the tail. And that's just to hold that dimensions and size. Some people, even like his ears, still need to dry. Some people pin the ears forward. I guess it helps with drumming. It's not, well, you know, we could do it. It's not a big deal. You just pin the ear forward. I don't normally bother too much with that, but pin the ears forward. And And then we'll slide our wedge back in. And then I'll typically let them hang like that for, another day or two. Depends if I'm on the trap line or what's going on. But he can stay on the board a little longer like that. And then after that, then he gets hung on my line in the fur shed and shipped out. And that's how we do a marten.